mention. My grandma's old age pension is the reason why I'm standing here today.
I was excited to get the invitation. So
Yeah, no, it's great. Yeah, let's get into it. I'm looking forward to getting into the band, your history, the Bluebird Ramblers, and I want to know this first and foremost. 6 years ago, this pandemic changed so much about live music and the way we delivered everything and our lives in general. How did you get through that era, and how did it change the way that you guys approach the stage and do your thing?
Well, so that was pre Bluebird Ramblers, but yeah, I also performed with the Outtakes, and we were pretty heavy rotation throughout Kansas City, and everything just comes to a screeching halt all of a sudden. And you talk about calling forecasting incorrectly. I was dead wrong on every prediction I made about the epidemic. So as far as live performances, what I did was would share like some weekly updates. Me and Eric Leach, another member of the Outtakes, we would just record ourselves and share those on social media. But it was, you couldn't rehearse. I mean, not really. Some bands found ways of syncing things up, but I'm not savvy enough to have done that. So it kind of just brought things to a screeching halt as far as performance. What it did do, I guess, if you're going to find a bright side, is it gave me a chance to go back and dive into some music and take the time. Like, I told myself, here's a song I've always wanted to know how to play, and I've never sat down and actually taken the time to do it. And now I've got plenty of time. So let's go through this bit by bit. And so challenge myself to become a little more proficient with my instrument that way.
Yeah. So let's get into the history of the band. Give me kind of a archival overview of the band before we get into your specific history. How did the band come together?
So Paul Pace, who had been part of a regional band called the Silvermen that were kind of 20 years ago, were on the cusp of getting
I remember them. I do.
Yeah. So Paul was our drummer in the Outtakes, or is, and came up to me. We were playing at Knuckleheads one night, and he came up to me backstage in the green room, and he said, "Hey, I've got this idea for kind of a side project." And I just shut him down, like, I don't have time. Whatever it is, the answer is no. And he said, well, just hear me out. He said, I'm thinking like a traditional honky tonk and rockabilly music. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm in. I'm full in, because that's just where my heart has always been. And he found the other members of the Silvermen, Zoop and Bill, and asked them what their interest was. And Zoop and I were like of one mind. And, well, what about this? What about this guy? What about this? And we were just feeding off each other. So it clicked really quickly. What we didn't know is if there would be a market for anything like this. This was kind of us talking like, well, if I could play anything, what would it be that I would personally get the most enjoyment out of? But is there a market for anything like that? And, because of our relationship with Knuckleheads, Frank Hicks was kind enough to, hey, I've got some opening spots. You guys want to test that out and see how that goes? And it just instantly connected with people. And, it's just been 1 year, and we're booked a lot more solidly than I expected to be. And, it's been going over really well. So we had a venue tell us, you're exactly what my customers are looking for, and they don't know it.
There you go.
I thought, no, that's pretty cool. So
that's the secret sauce. So you moonlight doing this. You have a day job, and then you're a musician.
Right.
Okay.
But I'm vice principal at St. Thomas More School.
Okay.
So I've been in education all my life, but I've also been playing, semi-professionally uh, for the last 30 years as well. So,
Okay. So,
uh,
so how did you get the bug? Take me back to the beginnings. Are you originally from Kansas City?
well, my family's originally from Missouri. I did my growing up, I guess. To me, I always consider Kentucky my hometown, a little town called Fern Creek outside of Louisville, Kentucky. But when I was little, we lived in a small town in southeastern Missouri. And, like any other kid, I listened to what my old man listened to in the car, which was old country music. But what really hit was I was about 5 or 6, and the neighbor lady down the street had a garage sale, and she had a bunch of records that didn't sell. And she asked if I wanted them. And it's records, they were mine. And so I took them, and I just discovered, through those, what she had was Webb Pierce and Hank Snow and some old uh, Johnny Horton and Buck Owens. And those were the records I had. So I just wore them out, listening to them over and over. And my dad was tolerant because he liked that kind of music too. So that became really my first introduction to music that I could connect to. And then I was just always behind all my friends when they were listening to, Peter Frampton or Kiss. I was digging into Sun Records and listening to Carl Perkins and early Elvis and that type of stuff. So it's always been with me. When I learned to play guitar, the first thing I learned was old Elvis, "That's All Right, Mama" on the guitar. So it's just always been like in my soul, I guess you would say.
So let me ask you this. What was the first live show that you saw that blew you away?
Oh man. Well, the first live show I ever saw was Van Halen, but the one that really connected with me, two big ones. One was seeing Paul McCartney. I mean, how can you top that? But also the Stray Cats.
Wow.
Uh, the Stray Cats came out, and I was like everybody else. I was listening to new wave and stuff, and then the Cats came out, and I was like, oh my God, that's what I've always listened to, but not like this. And that ignited a whole new passion. So getting to see Brian Setzer every time he comes anywhere
Yeah.
close, that's always been. Now I've got a new kick in my pants to improve.
Yeah, totally. So, what do you like the best about being a part of the Kansas City scene, being in this community, making this music and performing for people?
Yeah, everybody's just they're so nice and so welcoming, and I don't get the sense that there's any competition. It's what is that? A rising tide lifts all boats. That's the approach that I feel from everybody. You've got that instant kinship with the other performers that you get to interact with, and a lot of people I get to know by reputation or by name because we're playing different places at different times. But you're at, say, at Knuckleheads backstage, and here comes all these other guys, and they're just regular folks, complimenting you, and I'm like, oh, but I've been listening to, Jimmy Nace. I've been listening to you guys forever.
Yeah.
So that's it. And what I'm really enjoying is watching. We were playing a show. The Ramblers were playing a couple months ago, and there wasn't anybody in that crowd over 30. And I'm like, none of these people they're not gonna know any of these songs. They're not gonna, what we're doing. And they were the most enthusiastic group of people, and there were people singing along. And I'm like, how do you know this stuff? And it was so affirming, like, hey, we're making connection here. Like some things are just good throughout the ages.
Yeah,
So
it's totally hip, and the young kids want to hear things, I think, that are organic and that are aside from what we get. We've gotten so AI and electronic driven and
yeah,
so machine driven that when you get a bunch of cats that like studied it organically and regurgitate it in their own way, they're probably just like, this is great. They would have
yeah,
to, you know?
yeah, it's fantastic. So it's whether it's somebody dancing along to music because they remember when I played we played an old George Jones song, and this lady came up to me afterwards. She said, I'm 95 years old. And that song was my favorite when it was on the radio, and I haven't heard it in years. And I just wanted to thank you for that. So whether it's somebody, that remembers the music from when it was out, or somebody that's just discovering the music, it's super exciting and affirming to be a part of that just love of something like that.
So having a day job as an assistant principal of a Catholic school, you almost are like Superman. You almost put on the cape to become a musician. How
Yeah.
much of this is known to not only colleagues and the populace? Is that kind of what it is? You have these two different lives?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm pretty much what you see is what you get. So I'm the same person, but kids are always super excited when they find out. And it's great when parents will bring their kids out to a show if we're playing somewhere where kids can be, if it's a festival or something, because they get super excited about that. And it's a whole different kind of fun for me when they're there. But yeah, I mean, it's like I said, I don't really know any difference. So my whole time in education, I've always been performing at night. In fact, one year for Christmas, one of my students got me a magnet that I keep on my door. It says, "Teacher by day, rock star by night." This is pretty funny.
It's so funny that we're talking now because Saturday, I was just thinking about this. In my 20s, I had kind of a rendezvous. A good friend of mine showed me to a lot of music that I didn't listen to. And he had told me that I grew up in Liberty. So the assistant principal at that time, his name was Mr. Stessman. And my friend said he is such a hip cat that he went and saw the jazz saxophonist Joshua Redman back in the late 80s. And no one knew this about him. He was like this closet guy that would just go and see music. He wasn't hiding it. He was just this hip guy, but he was pretty hardcore. If you crossed him, you were like, "Oh no, dude, I have to face him." But
Yeah.
I got a chance to do jazz talk with Joshua Redman the other night at the Folly Theater, and I just kept sitting there thinking, this was the dude that was the cool card for my assistant principal. He was the gateway to us understanding that this guy had a life outside of school. And it was so cool to think that.
Oh, that is cool.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah. So let me ask you this. Where are you playing now? What kind of itinerary are you guys keeping up? You said you've been around for about a year. How heavy is it now?
Uh, we're I think 6 times this month
Okay.
playing. So we're booked out. We've got some shows coming up at Knuckleheads. We're at the Brick on Friday, and out Lawrence has a great honky tonk crowd out there, young college
I
kids into
believe it.
that. So we're playing at Lucia. But then this summer, I'm super excited. We got a residency out in Deadwood, South Dakota, playing at Saloon 10, which is like one, South Dakota is my favorite place in the world, and Saloon 10 is a pretty cool bar. So we were doing a week-long residency there that I'm super excited about. But we're just kind of finding that in a relatively short time, we're fielding the phone calls
Yeah.
more than reaching out. So I think unknowingly and uh, just luckily we've kind of found a niche that isn't really being tapped very much right now.
Yeah.
So, and when you go about it, music's one of those things. If you go about it and you're having fun and you're enthusiastic, so's the crowd.
Uh-huh.
So,
100%.
to be doing something that you just are really getting a thrill out of playing, like, I love playing this old Buck Owens song, and now looks like everybody else is enjoying it too,
Yeah.
right? Or tapping into some Johnny Horton and thinking, man, I remember singing this in my bedroom, pretending to sing in front of people, and now I'm actually doing it. Is fantastic.
I remember in the late 90s there was a revival of kind of the swing rockabilly, the genre that you're doing, and I remember Reverend Horton Heat. Do you remember them?
Yeah,
Yeah, I remember they did Spirit Fest when they used to have that
yeah.
up on Liberty Memorial. But I remember the Squirrel Nut Zippers, and there was a rendezvous, and it was all of us in our 20s that were hitting it, that were going out there because it was like this fresh sound. It almost seems like there's a level of that that you're dealing with
Yeah,
now.
in swing music and rockabilly with Reverend Norton Heat, and the other guys, I don't know him, but all three of the other Ramblers have played many shows with him and consider him a friend. But also right in that era in country music was the resurgence of a band BR549,
Yeah.
and they were kind of that was first I had the Stray Cats. And then all of a sudden there's BR549, and I'm rediscovering the roots of country music. And I've got to know Chuck Mead, who's from Lawrence, Kansas. He's, kind of a native, was the lead singer, guitar player there. And Smilin' Jay McDowell. We've gotten to be buddies. So I've got to open and play with Chuck and hang out and drink PBRs with Jay and just talk about guitars and records and so that's pretty big deal too, where you've got two people that were instrumental in guiding you through music, and then you get to meet them and again find out, hey, they're just regular guys too. But
Yeah.
uh, yeah. Yeah, there was. So there was that resurgence, with Brian Setzer and the orchestra with swing music, and like you said, the Squirrel Nut Zippers. All of that came out at the same time. Uh, that BR549 was, being nominated for Grammys for doing, old Webb Pierce songs. So it's fantastic that music sometimes audiences tend to, we go through a cycle where we rediscover how good some stuff was.
Yeah, absolutely. So, how much does this life as a musician that you moonlight and do complement and vice versa with you being an administrator by day? How do those two worlds enhance and play off of each other?
Well, that's an interesting question. I've never really thought about it, but the first thing that comes to mind is developing people skills. You learn to be comfortable with all kinds of people and to interact with all kinds of people at various emotional levels. That's a part of both of those jobs. Um, Plus, I think what I have found um, is it makes me maybe a little more approachable because people who know that I'm also doing this recognize that I'm somebody that has outside interests. Like I'm don't just live at school,
Yeah,
and you know what I mean.
yeah.
So I think it helps develop relationships with not only the kids but with the parents and the community as well.
So, if you could get into a time machine and go back in time and see one concert, where are you going?
Oh man,
It's
I
fun but daunting.
yeah, that's super tough. I mean, I would love the first thing that comes to mind would I'd love to have seen the Beatles at Shea Stadium, but I don't know
Yeah.
if you would ever heard anything
No, you wouldn't.
there. But if I could go back and maybe see, Elvis on the Louisiana Hayride or one of those early shows where he's just getting, people are just starting to discover the magic that he had. That that'd be that'd be something.
What do you like the best about being a musician? What is it that you look forward to the most?
Um, Man, I don't know. It just becomes such a part of you. I mean, there's the emotional aspect. I mean, you pick up a guitar when you're happy, and you also pick up a guitar when you're sad. So it becomes a part of that. But as far as performing, um, it's all about interacting with the crowd. If you know, anybody that performs will tell you there's been nights where it felt like a job, and there's other nights where you're like, I can't believe I'm getting paid to do this. So that interaction with the crowd is what I think I most enjoy.
What do you like the best about Kansas City?
Oh, well, I mean, there's a little bit of everything here in Kansas City. I mean, I love that. Just the other day, we were talking about going down to the market, or the Steamboat Arabia for the educator and me. But we've got professional sports, and we've got a pretty good live music scene going here. I mean, of course, people think of LA and Nashville, but if you get to talking to players, we've got a lot of opportunities in Kansas City for live music that I think are a little harder to come by in other major cities even. So there's something for everybody here.
For sure. So as you look down the line here, what's the future? Recordings, growth of the band? What's going on?
Well, we've talked about that. Right now I think we're still in the process of developing a comprehensive set list. So we're we're doing that. The other guys from the Silverman days had recorded several records. I long ago had a record that was included on the soundtrack of a film that went nowhere. It was like the pre-production aspect. But I would love to do some recording. But I think mostly it's just getting to where we're picking venues where we can find new fans of the genre that are open to discovering something from the past.
So if anybody wants to dig in more into the band and shows, anything that's going on, where can they go? Where can they do that at?
But they can go to the website, thebluebirdramblers.com. And I think I've got to compliment Brother Bill, our bass player, is a graphic artist. He does all our posters and flyers, and he designed the website, and I think it's a fun one. But also all the normal social places. So we're on Facebook and X and TikTok and Instagram. So bands in town, pretty much anywhere that I could figure out how to get there on a keyboard.
Right on. Dan, I'll put all these links in the show notes. So great to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out. Godspeed to the band and everything you're doing. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Joe. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, it was great.
Neon Jazz.